There's a scene in Lady Bird that doesn't get talked about enough. Christine, Lady Bird, is in the car with her mom, and for a few minutes they're actually okay, laughing, listening to the same song. You can feel it, this small window where they're just two people who genuinely like each other. And then something shifts, a single comment, something familiar, and just like that, it's gone. If you watched that scene and felt something, not for them, but for yourself, then this video is for you. Because the loneliness I want to talk about today is hard to explain. It's not the loneliness of being isolated. It's not about being alone in a room. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who think they know you and still feeling completely unseen. And here's the strange part. For a lot of people, that feeling doesn't go away at family dinner. It goes away with someone they met 6 months ago, a friend who didn't know them at 15, a stranger at a party who asked a question nobody who raised them has ever thought to ask. So what is actually happening there? Why do some people feel more free with someone who barely knows them than with the people who've known them the longest? That's what we're unpacking today. If this is the kind of content you want more of, psychology behind films, books, and everything underneath, like and subscribe before we keep going. It genuinely helps the channel to gain traction. All right, let's dive in.
Here's the thing about the people who raised you. They knew you before you knew yourself, which sounds like a good thing, and sometimes it is, but mostly, for a lot of people, it means they built a picture of who you are before you had any say in it. Built it from your childhood behavior, your worst moments, your early personality, and that picture got locked in. You change, the picture mostly doesn't. Psychologists call this identity contingency, the idea that how other people see you shapes which version of you shows up around them. When someone has a fixed idea of who you are, you feel that pressure, and you start managing it without even realizing. You go quiet on certain topics, stop mentioning the parts of your life that don't fit their version of you. You just perform the draft they already have. Because being misread by someone who thinks they know you is exhausting in a very specific way. It costs more than it's worth to keep correcting. With strangers, none of that history exists. There's no old picture to protect, no role to maintain, no version of you from 12 years ago that keeps getting brought up at dinner. You just get to be whoever you are right now. No backstory attached, no context you didn't choose. That's not a small thing. For a lot of people, it's the first time they've felt like themselves in years.
Think about the last time you were with family and held something back. Not dramatically, you just didn't say anything. Kept an opinion to yourself. Took a belief you actually hold and translated into a safer, flatter version before saying it out loud. You probably didn't even notice you were doing it. That's the thing. It doesn't feel like a choice. It just happens automatically. And what's missing in those moments isn't love. It's something more specific. Researchers who study relationships call it relational safety. And it's not about how much someone loves you. It's about whether you feel safe being fully yourself around them. Relational safety needs two things: the belief that you won't be judged for showing up honestly, and the belief that the relationship can handle it if you do. In new friendships, both are easier to access. There's no history to protect, no old wounds, no unspoken rules built up over years. In families, even loving ones, both conditions are harder to meet. And this is the part that gets missed most often. Love and safety are not the same thing. You can be completely loved by someone and still not feel safe being honest with them. Those two things don't cancel each other out. Lady Bird shows this without flinching. Marion loves Christine. That's never really in question. But love doesn't automatically translate to safety. Every time Christine tries to be honest about who she is, what she wants, what she feels, it becomes a conflict. So she stops trying. She tells the strangers instead, the new boyfriend, the best friend's mom who barely knows her. because those people respond to who she is now, not who she's supposed to be.
There are a few clear reasons this happens. Most people feel them but have never seen them named. The first is narrative control. With someone new, you decide what they know about you, when to share something, how to frame it. You're not lying, you're writing yourself from scratch instead of being handed an old draft. You get to start from the present, not from a story someone else wrote about you years ago. In families, you're often cast before you even arrive. The sensitive one, the difficult one, the dramatic one, the one who always makes everything about themselves. Once those roles get locked in, it takes a huge amount of energy to operate outside them. Most people eventually just stop trying. The second is emotional stakes. The people who raised you have a personal investment in a particular version of you, not always deliberately, not always consciously, but the version that fits the family system. When you grow and change, it can feel to them like a quiet criticism, like you're saying the way they raised you wasn't enough. A stranger doesn't need you to stay small. They don't need you to confirm anything. They just get to meet whoever actually shows up. The third is the weight of history. Every conversation with family happens inside decades of context. You're never just talking. You're talking on top of everything that happened before. Old arguments, old wounds, things that were never fully resolved. New relationships are lighter, not because they're less real, but because the weight hasn't built up yet. And that lightness makes honesty feel less risky. It's also worth saying this is developmentally normal. Part of growing into yourself is building an identity that actually belongs to you. The pull toward people who reflect back the version of you that you're actively becoming is one of the central tasks of your 20s. It's not a betrayal. It might just mean you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
But here's what doesn't get said enough. The stranger you feel free with right now, if you actually stay close, if things get real, they stop being easy too. Eventually, you have to navigate them the same way you navigate everyone else. Chosen relationships don't stay weightless. They develop their own patterns, their own unspoken rules, their own old wounds and calcified roles, just like the ones you were born into. The freedom you feel with someone new is partly real, but it's also partly borrowed from the absence of history. Which means if you notice that you always feel freer with people who don't know you well, if real intimacy makes you pull back, if every relationship starts to feel like family once it gets close enough, that's worth sitting with. Because at some point, the honest question isn't, why am I so comfortable with strangers? It's, what am I afraid will happen if I let someone know me all the way through? Not the edited version, not the version you introduced yourself as, all the way through. Those are very different questions, and they have very different answers.
Lady Bird ends with Christine leaving her mom a voicemail. She doesn't say any of the things she needed to say across the whole film. She doesn't fix anything. She doesn't get the conversation she was owed. She just says, "I love you. I want you to know that I'm grateful." That's not resolution. She just showed up, and maybe that's where it starts. A lot of adult relationships with parents look like that. Not fixed, not easy, but something about holding both things at once, the way they failed to see you, and the fact that they tried, starts to create a little more room. Not resolution, just space. And the relationships with strangers who became close, those take patience too. Letting them see the parts you've kept hidden, letting history build without immediately running from the weight of it. Feeling comfortable with strangers is often the beginning of learning what safety actually feels like, what it feels like to be honest and not be punished for it, what it feels like to be met as you are, not as you were. The goal isn't to stay there. The goal is to take what you learn in those lighter relationships, what it feels like to be seen, and bring it back, slowly, carefully, on your own terms, into the relationships that have always mattered the most, even the ones where the window in the car keeps closing before you're ready. If any of this felt familiar,
If you recognized yourself in Christine or in that quiet habit of saving the real version of yourself for people who won't remember you in 5 years, I want you to sit with that. It's not a flaw, it's information. Drop a comment if you enjoyed the video. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needed to hear this, send it to them. Subscribe if you haven't. See you in the next video.